This 2004 Lincoln Towncar Ultimate that you see behind me is worth $75,000 in today's money. Now, before you guys start freaking out and saying, what are you talking about? The car was never listed for that amount of money. How do you get that figure? Let me explain really quickly to you. When the 2004 Lincoln Towncar came out, specifically this trim, the Ultimate trim, which was the highest trim for the year, just behind the Ultimate L, this car was listed around $45,000, $46,000. I actually did some digging and was able to find the original receipt, paper receipt from the original owner in the owner's manual in the glove box of the vehicle, where it shows the price listed around $46,000 back then in 2004. Now, if I take that same number and I throw it in Google to match it up with inflation and 2023 pricing, it comes out to about $75,000. So, what did you get back in the day in 2004 when you spent $46,000 on a new car? Let's take a look at this Lincoln Towncar behind me, and you could tell me if you think it was worth the money back then. Now, I know everybody's financial situation is different, but I feel like for the most part, people could agree that $45,000, $46,000 to spend on a vehicle, even by today's standards in 2023, is a pretty significant amount of money to spend on a car, truck, whatever you're purchasing. But to spend that kind of money back in 2004, you had to have really, really, really liked this car to spend that kind of money. That was a big, big chunk of money, about, like I said, $75,000 in today's money. So, what did you get for the money when you bought these Lincoln Towncars back then? Let's go through the list. So maybe back then in 2004, you were super impressed by the automatic opening and closing trunk that Lincoln offered in these Towncars. Or maybe you were impressed with the big 17-inch machined aluminum wheels that came on this car. That's honestly one of my favorite things. Or maybe it's the fact that you could open the center armrest from this way, but as well, you could open it from this way. Guys, I think I found the real reason it was worth that much money. It's because they gave the one sun visor that you could put to the side like that, and you could also have the little flap that goes down right there that gives you dual sun visors for ultimate sun shielding protection. Maybe you were impressed with the cashmere tri-coat paint color that was an additional $595 back then in 2004. But it does have that little sparkle in there, so maybe that you could justify spending that kind of money back then just because of that little sparkle. Or maybe it's the plush sofa-like seats in this car and the leather. Super comfortable to sit in. It's like you could fall asleep in these seats. Feels like you're watching a movie in your front room when you sit in these seats. Maybe that was why you wanted to spend that kind of money back then. Under the hood, it was a V8 engine. No turbos, no hybrid, no supercharger, no nothing like that. It was just a plain V8 engine and a 4-speed automatic transmission. Maybe that impressed you, and that's why you would spend that kind of money back then. Or maybe it's the gauges that has a big speedometer in the middle, and then to the left, it also has a digital speedometer. I guess you felt like you could spend $45,000 and get 2 speedometers, so it was worth it. The leather and wood grain steering wheel, maybe that's something that attracted you to the car. The dual climate control, or the SoundMark audio system in this vehicle, which back in 2004 and even today, 20 years later, this audio system in this car does sound very, very good. And okay, I get it. By today's standards, if you look at this car, it's very hard to think that people were spending that kind of money. In a world today that offers turbos, hybrids, better fuel economy, 10-speed automatic transmissions compared to this 4-speed, 15 and 18 and 25 speaker audio systems, and big screens in the center where you could do everything, and cars that drive themselves. A lot of people might look at this car and think it's really nothing special. but you need to go back in time a little bit and really think about it. Another really unique thing, and probably pretty impressive back then, I could imagine, for its time, were these headlights. Now, they're just your regular typical headlights, but the unique thing about them is on the side right here. So on these cars, when you go ahead and put, for example, this is the left side of the car, driver's side of the car. When you go ahead and go to put your left turn signal on, there is a light in here that will stay illuminated. It doesn't blink, it just stays illuminated, and it shines light right here on the ground, showing and lighting up the direction you're going to be turning the vehicle. Now, it's kind of hard to show right now because it's daylight, but lucky for you guys, I do have a video of it. So take a look at what I'm talking about here. If you put the left turn signal on, that stays illuminated to show where you're turning. Okay, and I get it. A lot of these things I probably mentioned to you guys are, it's not really a big deal to you. It seems, it seems very dated, and it probably is. By today's standpoint, a lot of the stuff I mentioned probably is just boring old technology that's been way surpassed by today's standards. But at one time, these Lincoln Town cars were the cream of the crop car to have. It had all the features. It was the most comfortable. It was a status symbol to own one of these vehicles. And I guess they're not for everybody. It's either you like them and you appreciate them, or you think they're a grandma or a grandpa car. Obviously, for me, I really like it, and that's why I bought it. But for other people, they might not even know what they're looking at and might just see an old, boring car. But there's a lot more to these cars than that. And besides all the little features and gimmicks I named on the inside, how could you forget the air ride rear suspension on these cars? Now, it's hard for me to get up under there and show you the airbags themselves, but I could throw a picture up here on off Google so you can see. That air ride suspension, I don't care if it's a 20-year-old vehicle. I don't care what kind of suspension and things they've come up with since then. Nothing beats the ride of these cars still 20 years later. I've worked at car dealerships. I've driven numerous types of cars. I worked at a Lexus dealership. I worked at a Honda dealership. I've driven a bunch of those cars, used cars, everything. It is very, very, very difficult to mimic or beat the ride that this car has. And yes, even 20 years later. Another thing I forgot to mention, the backup sensors on the rear bumper. Now, today's standpoint, we got 360-degree cameras with bird's eye views and backup cameras and all this stuff. But back then, 20 years ago, I'm sure that when they brought the car home and were showing their friends and family that if you get too close to something, it beeps on the inside and lets you know. I'm sure that was pretty impressive stuff back in the day. You know what I mean? The way I look at vehicles is a lot like the same way I look at technology or phones, iPhones, is every year they get bigger, better, more expensive, more features, this and that. But if you find a clean version of one of these cars still, and you're able to get your hands on one, and you appreciate it and understand what it is, and you're looking for something that's comfortable, that doesn't have all the extra stuff that you don't really need, it's just a simply well-built, luxury, big American cruiser, it's definitely worth still buying in 2023. But if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you guys checking it out. Drop a comment below. Let me know, do you think you'd be able to shell out the 46 grand or the 75 grand in today's standards for something like this? You got to go back in time. You got to really put yourself in the situation. I mean, let me just, for example, throw up the interior of a 2004 Toyota Camry, because that's a more basic car at the time. Cloth seats, no steering wheel controls like, cruise control or fan speed or volume. You couldn't do that on those cars. It was cloth. Everything was kind of like a plastic material. So you really have to see how far we've come with vehicles nowadays since then. I mean, it's just insane. And guys, the last video I did on this vehicle, which I'll throw it up in the top corner up here with a little card, and I'll also throw it at the end of the video so you can just click on it and watch it if you didn't see it. I just kind of did like a walk around and told the story about how I purchased this car recently. I've owned it only for about a week now, so it's still new to me. I'm still learning little things about it, and I'm liking it so far. Knock on wood, it's been good so far. Still need to get new tires because the tires on this car are the original tires. I looked at the DOT marking on the side, and these tires were made in 2004. So I probably shouldn't be driving this thing with 20-year-old tires on them. But we're going to get around to it. I got a couple things in my head. I really wanted to keep the white wall tires, but because the options are so limited with white walls and some of the reviews I've heard of those white wall tires weren't the greatest, we might just have to do the typical black sidewall Michelin tires, because as much as I like the look of those white walls, at the end of the day, the functionality is really important and the ride quality is more important than the cosmetics. So if the Michelin's better ride and is going to do better all season for me, that's the tire I'm going to have to go with, the black sidewall. And also for you guys that commented on my recent video regarding that stuff that was coming out of my AC vents in the front, appreciate all the insight on that. There was like 3 or 4 people that commented or reached out, 1 on Facebook or 2 on Facebook, and I think 2 on YouTube, that went ahead and clarified what that was and also said that they had been experiencing it in their cars. So good to know that it's not anything too crazy or cause for huge concern. So I appreciate you guys commenting about that. And yeah, still a lot of things to do. A lot of people have been asking me what my plans are for the car, and definitely got to do those tires. I want to go ahead and undercoat the bottom with like a fluid film to prevent rust here, and I'm in Chicago, so I don't want the bottom of the car, the undercarriage, to be getting rusted out or anything. So I think fluid film on the bottom would be good. Window tint, new tires. We did the oil change. I got to do coolant still. I was going to do the transmission fluid and filter, but I've heard horror stories that when you have an older car like this, if it's never been done, then your best bet is probably just to leave it alone. I don't want to go ahead and start messing with that transmission fluid, and I go to put new fluid in, and all of a sudden it's not acting right, or it's slipping, or I don't know. It's scary. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to mess with it. I might just roll the dice and say, leave the transmission fluid in there and ride it out and see what happens. But for the coolant and probably the rear diff, we're definitely going to have to go ahead and do that, whatever else I could think of. But as always, if you guys are appreciating the content, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, drop a comment. I've been trying to get these Lincoln videos out quick for you guys, so I'm glad you guys are appreciating it. I'm appreciating the car. I got no complaints so far. And I'm going to go ahead and close out the video here. Drop a comment. Let me know if you think the Lincoln Town Car was worth it. Let me know if you have one, how many miles you got on yours. And as always, we will see you guys on the next video. Peace.